I'm 34, male, and the co-founder of a tech company. Spent the last 10 years building it from the ground up. Blood, sweat, caffeine, you know the drill. The company took off and life was good. But this isn't about how I made it. It's about how my so-called best friend tried to rip it all away. We met in college. He was the loud, charismatic guy who could charm his way through anything. I was the one pulling all-nighters and quietly making sure we didn't flunk out. Classic duo, right? After graduation, we tried launching a few businesses. Most flopped. Then one stuck. The company grew faster than we could have imagined, and I brought him on as my co-founder. Equal shares, equal power. That's how much I trusted him. For a while it worked. He was the face of the company, schmoozing with investors while I handled the operations. I didn't mind. Not everyone likes being in the spotlight. But the little things started to feel off. He'd dismiss my input during meetings, always pushing his own ideas like he knew best. Investors started reaching out to him directly instead of involving me. The board was more interested in his vision than my strategies. Fine, whatever. I was still doing my job, and the company was growing. But then I overheard something that stuck with me. One of the junior developers asked, "Hey, are you and your co-founder on good terms? People are saying he's been meeting with VCs without you." I laughed it off, told myself it was just a rumor. He wouldn't do that. Not him. Except he did. An anonymous email popped in my inbox one day. No subject. Just 2 words, thoughts. Attached were screenshots, conversations between him and a couple of our investors. He was trashing me, called me incompetent and a roadblock, said I wasn't fit to lead. And the kicker? He was trying to convince them to push me out. I stared at that email for a long time. It felt like someone punched me in the gut. This guy, the one I'd built everything with, was planning to take it all. But I didn't react. Not yet. Instead, I documented everything. Emails, financial reports, every sketchy meeting he had. I even had our legal team quietly investigate any irregularities. Turns out there were plenty. Money was disappearing, small amounts at first, but they added up. Payments to non-existent vendors. Backdoor deals. He wasn't just trying to push me out. He was lining his pockets on the way. And still, I said nothing. Until he made his move. We had a quarterly board meeting. All the big names were there. Investors, stakeholders, and of course him. He walked in like he owned the place. Before we even got through the financials, he stood up. "I think we need to have a serious conversation about the company's leadership." He was so smug. Spun this whole story about how I was stifling growth and holding the company back. Claimed we needed fresh, decisive leadership, meaning him, obviously. Then he pitched himself as the interim CEO. The board actually seemed to consider it. That's when I spoke up. Calm, collected. I wasn't going to yell. I didn't need to. I think before any decisions are made, the board should have access to some important information. I handed out folders, thick, detailed, undeniable. Every shady deal, every falsified document. I even had copies of messages where he joked about how easy it was to manipulate the investors. And then, for the grand finale, I played a recording. Yeah, I'd been ready. One of his so-called private meetings? Not so private. In that recording, he bragged about how he'd get rid of me and take what's his. The room went dead silent. He stammered, tried to deny it, but there was no coming back from that. The board wasn't just furious. They were disgusted. One by one, they told him they'd be supporting a full investigation. Effective immediately, he was suspended. But it didn't stop there. With all that evidence, I took it to the authorities. Embezzlement isn't something you walk away from. Investigators were all over it. And when they found even more offshore accounts, it was game over. Of course, he tried to reach out. Called me, texted me. It was just business. You know, I didn't mean it. We can fix this. No, we couldn't. When the legal hammer came down, he had no choice but to plead guilty. He's facing time now. Not decades, but enough. And the investors? They're suing him for every cent he stole. Pretty sure he'll be broke by the time he gets out. As for me, the board asked me to step up as CEO. I accepted. It wasn't even about pride. I wasn't going to let his betrayal be the final chapter of what we built. And yet it still stings. There's no clean break when someone you trust does this. But I don't regret how I handled it. I didn't stoop to his level. I stayed calm, built my case, and let the truth do the work. Justice has a nice ring to it. Anyway, if you ever think your best friend might be scheming behind your back, maybe double-check those spreadsheets. And hey, stick around. You never know when the next wild story's coming.